March 21st, 2015. BGN Network presents Kevin's Oblast Radio with your host, Kevin Barrett.
And Aleksa.
So we have Aleksa on today. Am I saying that right? You say it with an accent, but Aleksa, is that correct?
It's Aleksa, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I can't do it, but I'll try not to say your name too much. We were originally talking about programming and programming as a career, and I think we'll touch on that a little bit later in the show. First, so the audience knows who you are and everything. We'll do the normal Oblast interview process and get a little background on you. You're Serbian. You live in Serbia right now?
Yes, I live in Serbia. I was born in Croatia.
Okay.
I'm what would you call Yugoslavian, but
yes, right.
Now I'm Serbian.
Yes. I know a lot about. I mean, not as much as you, but I know a lot about Yugoslavia and all that sort of stuff. Because I just am a nerd and learn all kinds of stuff about all sorts of weird stuff like that. So your parents, they're Croatian. Where did they meet? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I didn't get the full story. They met in Croatia. Both my parents are from Croatia, so are my grandparents.
Okay.
But my parents moved to Belgrade, Serbia, for university studying. My father is an architect. My mother was an IT engineer. And they studied in Belgrade. So they lived in Belgrade since 75 or something. Before I was born, anyway. I was born in Croatia because my grandparents were there, and it was easier for my mother to be with her parents, I think. Not sure.
Is there a big difference between, because Yugoslavia, everything was, various countries that are there now, etc. But, is there a big difference between the people, between, like, Croatia and Serbia and, Montenegro, Bosnia?
Well, there is a lot of difference, actually.
Really?
There are Slovenians. They are the most northern country. They were first to separate, and they joined the European Union. They were closest to the, I would say, the West, Europe, whatever. And then there were Croatians. Croatia is a little bit southern than Slovenia, and they are also more leaning to West. While Serbia, Montenegro, even Macedonia, and I'm not sure about Bosnia, but the southern countries are closer to Russia, to Eastern system, whatever.
Okay, so government-wise, that's that way. But if you were walking down the street, would you be able to pick out somebody from Croatia?
You would
Really?
be able to pick up someone from Bosnia, maybe, and from Macedonia. But Serbian, Croatians, even Slovenians are more blunt.
Oh, interesting.
You maybe could, but I don't know. Today we are all the same.
Yeah.
Unless you're yellow, black, or white.
Right.
Otherwise, if you're white, you're white. There's no white from Russia, white from Serbia, white from UK. It's all the same, I think.
Are you able to go to Croatia? Is it cool to travel back and forth? Because I know Corey would always go to Croatia. I think he met his...
Corey is black. You have to understand that. We are not racist here, but it's probably strange for people to meet
really
here. That might be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he met his girlfriend or wife. I don't think did he get married? I haven't followed the guy in a while, but I think
she's from Turkey or something. I don't
Yeah, Turkey,
think
right,
she's
yeah.
wife, but I'm sure about the guy. He's a bit strange.
Yeah. Yeah, he would go to Croatia because that dude from England that I've suddenly forgotten his name.
Nick,
yes.
Nick is from...
I was on a show with him for like 2 years or something. They would always go to Croatia, so I don't know. Interesting. So, okay.
It's not a problem. There is. You have... I would say extremists, people who are extremely Croatian or extremely Serbian. If you're a Croatian and come to Serbia and meet a skinhead on the street, and you have a Croatian flag on yourself, you will probably get a beating. Then again, if they meet me, I will get a beating just because they want to beat me. That doesn't matter if I'm Croatian, Serbian, whatever. They just want to beat someone up.
Right.
And if you're Croatian, that's a good reason. If you're not, well, they will look for another reason to beat you. So.
Wow. So you don't plan vacations to go to the coast in Croatia or anything like that?
Well, I do.
Oh, you do?
Most of my family still is. My aunt is in Pula. My father's brother is in Zadar. That's a bit southern. I don't know if that is interesting to you, but Croatia itself, the northern parts are safe for completely safe for Serbians. No one will say anything to you, but southern parts are more of a problem. That's where the extremists are. And during the war in Bosnia, Croatia, whatever, northern parts weren't close to the battlefield. I think not many people died there.
Sure. Right.
There were not. So people in the north are more peaceful. In the south, not so much. They don't like us.
Yes, I can see I'm looking at the map, and I can see that, the southern parts are near, Sarajevo and Kosovo and all that, where everything kind of blew up.
Yes, the southern part, if you check out where Zadar is, I was actually born in Zadar, that's Dalmatia, and that part was extremely hit by war, I think.
Yeah.
And they don't enjoy seeing Serbians there. I was there.
But you're actually Croatian. I mean, you were born in Croatia, but I guess your nationality is Serbia, so you can't really tell them that you're Croatian, right?
Well, I can. I do have Croatian papers. I am born in Croatia, thus I can call myself Croatian if I want to. No one can stop. But to them, it doesn't make a difference. They can hear by my pronunciation of words and talking. They can recognize that I'm from Serbia.
I see. Okay.
And if I get to someone who doesn't like Serbia so much, I will have some problems, perhaps. But I didn't have any.
When Yugoslavia was a country, what language did everybody speak? You didn't speak Serbian, did you?
No. It was called Serbo-Croatian. The language is basically the same. I imagine the difference between Serbian and Croatian is like between U.S. English and Canadian English.
I see.
Some words were pronounced differently, but you can understand the Croatian. There is no need for. Yes, there is actually one difference. We use Cyrillics as our
alphabet. Sure.
Alphabet. They use Latin, but in Serbia we use both Cyrillics and Latin. And I think most kids nowadays don't even use Cyrillics. You use internet. Cyrillics you can't use on the internet. So we are lazy.
Forcing change. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so you were born, what city did you say you were born in?
Zadar.
Okay.
Z-A-D-A-R.
How long were you born?
84.
Age 4, okay. So
84, yes.
Remember too much about it then, before you moved to Serbia.
Well, I was there for my entire childhood, but I was too young for the war, plus I was living in Belgrade during the war, so I didn't see any fighting except on television.
Wait, so you were in Croatia until age 4? You were only in that city until?
No. I was in '84. I was born 1984,
okay.
and my parents were living in Belgrade at that time. So
okay.
I spent most of the summers in Croatia, and whenever my parents needed time, they would send me and my sister to our grandparents. So
sure.
We lived both here and there.
Okay.
But during the war, we were in Belgrade. So
during the war, you were in Belgrade?
Yes.
Wow.
I was what you would call safe.
Okay. Well, yeah, sort of, I guess. I don't know. Mostly.
We had other problems, but not bullets.
Okay. So how was school then? What's your school system like for primary school?
Primary school is 8 years. You start from age 7 to age 15, Then you go to the high school, 4 years, and then you're off to college if you want to.
I
Primary
mean, you
education.
probably see what school is like on TV, in the West, like, the United States and England and things like that. I mean, how would you compare your school system there? Similar or,
I'd say entirely different. I'm not sure the thing I see on TV is that the way it really is, but elementary school, we don't have that middle school thing. That's that's
yeah,
age.
some places don't, right, yeah. It's just a way of dividing them.
You have 8 years of primary school, then you go to high school. Primary school is you're required to go to primary school. You have to go.
Of course. Is it a lot of discipline? Was it easy? I mean, did you?
It's easier and easier. For generations before me, it wasn't so easy. My generation is somewhat easier. Today's generations, they are first 2 years you don't get grades. You get flowers and shit.
Oh, really?
I don't know. You don't have to learn anything. Teachers aren't motivated to teach you. Kids aren't motivated to learn. So I don't know. It kind of sucks.
Yeah, it seems like that. Did you have to wear a uniform?
No. Some schools perhaps did, but mostly no. You have to get the time frame. I started school in 1990. That's when the war started. Also sanctions and economic crisis. No way could we afford uniforms. So.
Okay, sure, absolutely. And then so, what about high school? The same? No uniforms?
No uniforms. No. It's the same thing actually. Last 4 years of primary school are basically the same as those 4 years of high school. You learn same things. Maybe they add a few. I would say.
Okay, and when you say you learn stuff, though, I mean, are you like sitting around doing like calculus 2 or something in the middle of high school? I mean, I'm trying to get a base on what you're learning. I mean, did you do well in school?
Well, not really. I wasn't very motivated.
Okay, sure.
I was never good at math or physics or any of those things.
Okay.
But I was, let's say, forced to learn to pass the grade. You had to know something, so you couldn't, especially high school. In elementary school, I think they can't fail you. You may fail a grade if you're really, I can't say dumb, but if you do not want to do anything, they will fail you a couple of times, then they will send you to another grade school where you will pass and you will have 8 grades of education, but you will be illiterate.
Right. Okay, all right, well, I get a basic idea of
well, that's what you have to know. It's 8 plus 4 plus, 4 for college if you want to.
What did you do in terms of recreation outside of school? I mean, were you part of sports? Did you just hang out?
I was a
computer guy.
Computer guy completely. Computer guy, and in a literal sense, I was fat. Still am fat.
Well,
you could see me playing basketball, playing football. I wasn't too bad at it, but that wasn't my thing.
Well, okay. But so you just kind of came home and chilled and played computer and listened to podcasts like Video Game News Radio, and you were like, hey, this is good shit.
Well, yes. That came a lot later.
I know.
I started listening to you in 2010, I think.
Okay. Right.
So, well, if I had podcasts, it would have been more interesting, but no. Also, I didn't have internet, so...
Right. So, but, I mean, after high school, did you go to college?
Yes, I am somewhat ashamed to say I'm still going to college.
Oh, of course. No, that's fine. That's what I figured.
Well, is it fine or not? I don't know, but I'm still there.
Okay.
I don't know. Well, we can touch on that later if you want, but I'm still in college.
No, that's fine. I mean, that kind of steers us into, going into programming and stuff, but I'm curious about, how things built up over there in terms of tech in that part of the world, I suppose. Because I've heard a lot of things, like Skype came from Macedonia or something like that, and there's like eBay and all of these. There's a lot of investment, I guess is what I'm saying, over in that area of the world. And I'm wondering, since you grew up going from, say, the war and things were kind of not that technical up until today, which I imagine there's a lot more tech going on. Could you talk a little bit about that, like what transformed in the area?
Well, I'm not sure. During the 90s, during the war, we had a lot of piracy. So it was, well, not during the war. In 1995, PC was still an expensive thing to have. I had one since my mother was a programmer, so I was, let's say, lucky. But later in the 90s, we were lucky enough to have access to any software we wanted. You could buy Windows 95, 98, Photoshop, any program you wanted, you could buy it on the street for $1, literally.
Okay.
So my generation could learn a lot faster. You could learn Photoshop for almost nothing. You would sit there and you would have that Photoshop, which costs, I don't know, $1,000 or something. You could play with it, and it was very easy to be self-taught in Serbia. It was a bit harder getting hardware, since hardware is, you can't pirate hardware, and it's a lot more expensive to acquire hardware here than in, I don't know, some other parts of Europe, I guess.
I mean, are there things that you just couldn't get? I mean, were there, just like, you can't order things because there's mail restrictions or anything like that?
No, you can't order things here. It's first thing, postage is very expensive.
Okay.
For example, I tried to order that full mask thing that costs $20 from the Amazon. Postage costed $60. So well, which was I didn't want to pay for it. So ordering by mail is risky. People do it. We had many card frauds here. You could get that was also early 2000s. We would get stolen card numbers from whatever.
Sure.
And we could order anything we want from internet, and no one would catch us.
Sure.
So that was a good thing, but that didn't last for long. I guess Europe stopped that pretty quickly.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I did something
good.
like that once when I was younger, but it was mostly a friend that was doing it, and
I heard a story.
It was easier. Yeah, it was easier back then than it is today. At least not get caught.
You couldn't get caught here. You would order something using stolen credit card. You would use your grandma's address or whatever. So even if they did trace the order, they would come to your grandma who didn't know about it. So it would stop there.
Yes. Interesting. Okay. So so you're thinking about college at this point, and you're thinking about getting into a career with computers. You've been doing computers a long time. I mean, talk to me about that. Like, what do you think in terms of, like, are you programming right now? Is that your course work that you do, or that you're just thinking about it?
I am working for 3.5 years as a Java, whatever, and SQL developer. I was interested
Java SQL, got it.
Java SQL, well, that's my I would say, there is I'm most interested in, but I do C#, I do anything, PHP, Perl, whatever comes my way, I can do it.
Sure, absolutely.
And I enjoy programming. I always enjoyed doing that, and since I had access to the PC since I was 8, whatever. It was just the natural thing for me to do. I was interested in it, and it pays well.
Sure.
So Well,
So you find that there's enough jobs in that field for you?
yes, I have a steady job at the moment.
Okay.
If it wasn't that steady, I could find another job. I'd say pretty fast.
Okay.
The IT jobs in Serbia are by far the best paid jobs. So
Okay.
if you know anything about programming and IT, you're pretty safe here
Okay.
as the job
Um,
thing.
so then, if you're that entrenched with experience in computers and you already have a career in careers, why complete college?
Well, that's actually the thing I wanted to ask you. As I don't remember, you never went to college.
That's right.
Yes. Well, I also don't see the point in getting that degree. I was uh, I had one of the exams was right after it was at 8 p.m. So I was on my job till 7 and went to that exam. And on that exam, our professor started, how would say that, started saying that we are worthless, we don't know anything. It was a basic C sharp course, whatever.
Right.
And I got the assignment was to make a simple application. It took us 1 hour to do it, which
Okay.
is very slow.
Right.
But he started telling us how we are worthless, that we shouldn't touch computers, whatever. And then it occurred to me that I just came from my job where I was working on an application that I coded that is working 24/7, serving, I don't know, 50,000 requests per day, whatever. It's a, I would say, somewhat serious application. And there is this guy telling me that I don't know shit. So I know, basically, fuck you. Why would I need your diploma, your approval saying that I am a good programmer?
Yeah.
That's where it hit me. I had ever since I got the job, I started wondering, do I really need that diploma? But now I'm pretty sure that I don't. The thing is, I never tried looking for a job outside my country. In my country, if I can show them that I can do the things they need, they will hire me. But outside of country, I don't know. If I trying getting a job in
Right.
whatever Europe, USA, whatever, would they require degree?
The demand is so high in the United States that you know, you'd be hired if you just knew how to run Windows. I think mostly anything
Good to
they
know.
can teach you. It's but at the same time, you know, there's a lot of people that have, I'd call, educational elitism, and they feel as though because they went to college and they have degrees that you should go to college and you should have degrees because if they did it, you should do it. But by and large, from, you know, the way the system works here is basically there's recruiters, and recruiters will sell you to another company, and they get you know, some money, and if you end up working at that company, the company needs you really bad, so they'll pay the recruiter like, you know, $10,000 if you end up staying at that company for at least a year. So the recruiters will call you until they, you know, they can get you to be interested in taking one of their jobs that they have, and then they try to fit you into whatever you can do. So college, you know, is really not that important, mostly because, I mean, realistically, you know, sure, a guy can go to college and he can end up having a fantastic time and learning all kinds of stuff, but another guy can go to another college and be a complete idiot and still end up with a degree. And so as a company, you can't tell between the guy that knows everything and the guy that's an idiot just because they both have a you know, a degree from the college. And so the only thing you can really do is test them. So a lot of places will just test you. And so I applied at one place nearby called Highland, which was like it's kind of what they call the Silicon Valley of our area. It's a really big campus and all this sort of stuff. And they had a 5-part test that you had to do, and each part had like 5 questions, and it was pretty rough because it was, you weren't allowed to refer to any books or anything. You couldn't look up anything on the internet. You just basically had to write code or write at least pseudocode by hand to answer all of these questions within like an hour or 2 hours or something like that. And I did terrible at it because I don't code like it's 1985 and I'm on a Commodore 64 or something. I mean, we have access to IntelliSense and we have access to the internet, and you take pieces of code and you take snippets and things to make things work. So I didn't do good at that. Somebody that came right out of an educational environment where they had to like study and like put all of that into their brain at the moment to write, to answer tests, would surely do better on a test like that. But would they be a good coder? I don't know. I mean, I don't personally think so. I think a lot of it just comes from experience, and the more experience that you have, the better you're going to be. I hired programmers for where I work, and I just have a conversation with them because I'm more interested in the guy that I hire that's kind of like yourself, that's really interested in computers, that finds that they can do everything and anything, that nothing seems like it's a big challenge, and that they're going to have a good work ethic, that they're going to come in on time and leave on time, because I can teach you anything. I can teach you. It's up to you to do the actual work. And there's a lot of people out there that don't, they're not cut out to work right. They're more, they want to go home, they don't want to do anything, they want to screw around, and
if you want to work in IT, you have to be, I know it's the same thing in US, but here you don't work from 9 to 5 or 8 hours a day, whatever. You work as long as it's needed.
Right.
If the project is well organized, you will work 8 hours a day, and that project will be completed at time. But that never happens. You have to work weekends. There are problems unforeseen. You have to sit at your job till midnight, whatever. So people who are not ready to do that, who don't want to work more than 8 hours a day, shouldn't work in IT. And that's something you cannot, and no one teaches you at the college, university, or whatever.
Yeah. Although I'll say that at least here is, it depends, because I've worked for standard 8-hour-a-day jobs, and I've worked for, that's all I've worked. But I've been interviewed for jobs that are like what you're saying, and I've been interviewed for other jobs from big companies that are still only going to work you an 8 or a 9-hour day. It really depends on what you're doing. If you wanted to work for a video game company, let's say, they have deadlines. Like, they have hard deadlines. The game's got to get packaged and shipped and out the door at a certain time. So, you might start on a 2-year project, and at the beginning, it's 8 hours a day, and then at the end, you're working 24 hours a day, so you can get that thing out the door on time. But if you're working at a company that does sort of business software that's like maintenance-based, that's just going to be an 8-hour day. That's just going to be an 8-hour day all the time. So you're right, but I don't want to scare people that are listening to think that programming is an 80-hour work week all the time, because it really depends on your appetite, because the jobs that pay really well are the jobs that you're going to work 80 hours a week versus the living wage that you're going to get working the 40-hour week. That's my opinion.
Yes, IT here is 40 hours a week job. It's not. It's expected that there will be days or periods where you will work 12 hours a day, but it's not required. No one tells you that.
Sure. Right.
When you sign the contract, it says 8 hours, and you should be paid overtime. You should get rest days, whatever, however you call that. But the point is that you have to work. If there are 3 people on the project and 2 of them want to work 12 hours a day and the third one doesn't, you have problems.
Right. What do you think? I'm assuming you're not married. Are you married?
No.
Do you live at home with your parents, or do you live by yourself?
No, I live by myself. I lived with my sister, then she got her kid, and I decided to move out since I wanted my peace and whatever. So now I live by myself.
So I mean, that's you're describing exactly like the single guy lifestyle. Are you in your 20s right now, or early 30s?
I am 30, 31. 31. 30, whatever.
So do you think that, obviously if you were married and you had children, that your career would be very difficult to maintain and balance out your family life? I mean, I don't know how the structure of the family is over there. Like, if your wife would just stay home and take care of the kids. Here in the United States, it's women work just as much as men work in most cases. So it would be difficult for me, I'm not married, but if I had kids here, to be able to take care of my kids and work like a 60-hour work week or something.
Here both parents have to work, unless the one parent has a very good job, which is paid well, which is rarity here. Both parents have to work. So IT plus children, I'm not sure. Good thing about my position is that I can work from home. So if required for me to stay my kid, I could. So it's in that sense, it's better than some other jobs. I'd say working in a factory or whatever. If you're working in a factory, you have to be in a factory. And plus, working in the factory is, or job like that is a physical job where you come home very tired. I don't come home very tired. Sometimes I'm stressed, which can be a problem. But I don't think it's the worst job for family life. I know. The best thing is it's well paid. So if you wanted to have a family here, you should consider IT.
Now, how do you go about learning how do you keep yourself up to date, keeping yourself valuable? Like, we have, obviously, places like Microsoft have certification courses that you can take in order to become certified and become a Microsoft certified developer, for instance. I mean, you're working with Java and SQL right now, but how do you keep up to date? And do you study computer stuff, or do you just pick it up as you go? Like, for instance, I just recently learned about MongoDB, and so I've been reading about Mongo, and I wonder sometimes how other people pick this stuff up and start using it. I mean, is it just, your company says we're going to start using Mongo, or is it something where how do you stay educated?
There are things that I have to know for my job, that my company requires me to know, and for those things, I wait for my company to say you have to start using Mongo, or you have to learn. We work with Sybase IQ, whatever.
Okay, sure.
They say we will have a great project that requires you to know this, this, and this, and they give me the literature. They enroll me in a course if required. Then I learn those things that way.
Okay.
But my position currently, I work on a big project that is not going to end soon. Sure. I'm working on it for 3 years. I'll be working on it for another 3 or 4, whatever. And I don't think any new technologies will be applied to that project. So I have that problem that I don't have to improve myself for this position. And thus I don't have much time. I cannot tell my boss, hey, I don't want to work here, or I want to take a break, I want to study something else.
Sure.
For those things, when I have time, I do freelance. Sometimes I either help my friends who do freelance or do freelance myself. Take a project in something that interests me. I started doing Perl. I don't know if you're...
Yes, sure.
Excellent. Using Perl and MySQL. I never used MySQL. Actually, we are using that Azure thing.
Oh,
I
sure.
don't know.
Azure, yep.
So I have some friends work on Azure in Perl, doing some HTML parsing, whatever.
Okay, yep.
So I do HTML, I do PHP, I do Perl, I do MySQL on my time. Not for money, but for improving myself. I'm not sure if those are the technology I should be learning, but that's the way I expand my knowledge beyond.
That's great. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've always done something similar, although my job doesn't ever sort of, say, we're going to pay for you to learn something. I mean, that never happens. It's basically just I have to learn it, and I make all the recommendations in terms of what technologies we should be using. But we're generally a Microsoft shop just because that's historically been line of business sort of software when you're developing things for an industry that basically has their own computers and their own desks and stuff. You're not going to recommend that they run Linux or anything like that. So it ends up being a Microsoft application. We have a lot of problems with legacy and having to upgrade legacy code and things like that we don't have the budget to do. But I won't talk too much about my world of problems. So I mean, you sound pretty happy doing that. The only thing and I deal with the same problem all the time is, I mean, it's good that you keep up working with your friends and things like that. I just, like you said, you're going to be working on a 3-year project and it might be 3 years more. Do you feel like you might fall behind against, say, a new technology that comes out that everybody starts using and that you're not embracing at this point? Sometimes I wonder, if I should be, learning these things like Link and Light Switch and all this sort of stuff that keeps coming out all the time. We're doing stuff with Apache Cordova right now for mobile, and that's pretty bleeding edge. But for the most part, we don't do stuff that's right on the cusp of technology. And we spend a lot of time working in old D-based systems. I had an interview not that long ago down the road, and they were still using COBOL. And I thought to myself, I'm like, man, I don't want to go into COBOL because even though I could do it, my skill set when I get out of there is going to be who's going to hire a COBOL guy, So sometimes I just wonder, do you have that sense that you might be getting behind on any technologies or anything, or are you pretty comfortable?
Yes, definitely. I do have that problem. I told you this was a long project, and we had what I would call serene period. Our project was my part of the project. The part of the project I'm doing didn't have any improvements for I think 2 or 3 months. For 3 months I was sitting doing nothing.
Sure.
I had smaller tasks, but I didn't do any SQL programming, I didn't do any Java programming, whatever. I literally just stood there and watched for possible errors or whatever.
Okay.
In that period, I noticed that my SQL knowledge degraded. I forgot some basic things.
Right.
I didn't do any SQL for 3 months, and at that point I realized what you were just saying, that I have to be let's say always on the edge.
Right.
Maybe not learning everything that comes out, but not doing anything is very dangerous.
Yes.
My job is paid well. Well, it could be paid better, but I'd say it's paid well. I am safe at the moment, but tomorrow, whatever, my company could go under for whatever reason.
Right.
And if I go to the job market again, I do have references, but do I have knowledge? That's the question.
Yes, right.
I'm not sure what's the good thing. I don't think it's wise to learn everything that comes out.
Right, I agree.
Unless you have some foresight into knowing which technologies will be applicable or
Right.
profitable, let's say it better. I know. That's actually a thing I want when I suggested that we should talk about programming. Telling people that start into programming, telling them what should they learn now. There's the same problem, I think.
Yeah.
When somebody is starting programming, they can start with C#, they can start with Java, they can go into PHP, JavaScript, or whatever. How do they recognize what's the best thing to start learning? You can't learn everything, that's for sure. You have to pick.
I mean, personally, if I was going to recommend, I mean, the first thing I would go into would be SQL Server or SQL or one of the main SQLs. It's probably going to be, it can be complicated, but for the most part, it's pretty easy. I mean, it's 4 real commands: select, update, insert, and delete. And but it gets broader from there. But it's nicely structured. It's not going anywhere.
Yes, it will stay more. It will stay the same.
Right. It'll stay the same, and it's used for everything and everywhere. And so, definitely, if I was going to get into programming, I would start with SQL and just master that first, and then probably, obviously at this point, HTML, even though that's not really a programming language, learning that and then transforming that into, say, a scripting language like Perl or PHP, which is what a lot of beginner people tend to cut their teeth on, is a lot of that sort of server-side stuff, and then you've got some really good basics right there. The C# and Java and stuff like that is really kind of like, I don't see C# going anywhere for quite a while, but it's also very, like, the frameworks and things are very dynamic and keep improving and changing. So unless you have a need to do it, I don't know when you should really embrace it, because it's vast and it's project specific, and you can't. Personally, I don't think you can learn all of it. You just kind of have to find the parts that you need and master those pieces. And I don't think you have to go to university to learn any of that. I mean, you can pick up books and teach yourself how to do it, or watch online courses and things like that. Once you have the basics of building stored procedures in SQL, you'll quickly learn how to write a decent application in a language, as long as you can understand the compiler and the interpreter and all that sort of stuff. But it really sort of, I mean, it's kind of like opening up the paper or looking online and seeing what jobs are hiring in your area and seeing what sort of skills they're looking for, and then kind of sitting down and learning those skills, I guess, would be the best way to do it. But I don't know. I mean, you can be certified in a language and things like that, and be like certified in C#, and then go in and get any job working on C#. But is that a job that you're going to want to do? Because if you want to work on video games, you're probably going to want to know a lot of math. If you want to work on the game engine, but at the same time, if you're going to go work in, say, a business environment that might handle like mailing lists and list work, then you're going to be doing a lot of SQL, and you're going to be doing a lot of data management, data massage. If you're going to work on websites, you're going to be dealing with a lot of sort of front. It depends on if you're going to be a front end guy or a back end guy, really. I mean, the back end guy is going to be handling the data and how to manipulate it, and the front end guy is going to be doing the design and the layout and all of that stuff. I mean, you could be both, but a lot of companies, you're in teams and you're working with a lot of different pieces and parts. I got interviewed at a place that was a big company, and they wanted to get a guy that could handle the automated phone system. So they had a whole programming language, I think written in VB.NET, that was just to manage the phone system, the automated response. And it was really complex the way they had it all built out and all of the options you can pick. But I mean, that's just the thing. You might be working on something cutting edge, but the project that you're working on might be totally boring. And so, I just think you have to be interested in what you're working on. You've got to be really, because you won't do good work if you're not interested in in the project that you're working on. That's my opinion.
I agree with you. That's what I thought when I said that you don't work in IT as a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
If you work in factory, you work from 9 to 5, you put two pieces together, you don't care. You don't have to be interested. You're there just to get that paycheck.
Right.
You could be doing two screws, you could be gluing two pieces together, whatever. You don't care. But in programming, it's a bit different. You have to be interested in what you're doing because most of the times you have to find, let's say, a better way of doing things. It's you're not just typing code. You have to know what you're typing, and to know what you're typing, you have to be interested in it because it's I would say if you can't code yourself, you're useless as a programmer. If someone has to stand over your head and say that thing is too slow, that part of code is not good, whatever, that's just, it's not going to work, I think. So you have to be interested in improving yourself.
Right.
And that's the thing. Even if you don't want to learn new technologies, technologies that you're using on your current project, you have to, let's say, master. You have to understand them.
Yes. So the last thing I'll ask you about is, well, in terms of career in computers and stuff, is what do you feel about becoming like a supervisor or a manager or a director? Is that something that you want to do, or is that something that you fear doing? You know, that's in my company. I mean, I'm in charge. I'm the director, but we're only a company of 8 people, so it's sort of silly. But in a larger company, you know, you can have multiple levels of, you know, project manager, team manager, you know, programming manager, director of programming, etc. But I feel like when you become in that position, you end up, you know, no longer programming. You end up, you know, managing people, managing projects, managing time. But you're in charge. The danger being, company goes out of business or you lose your job. You no longer have the technical expertise to be a programmer unless you start studying again. Or, you know, you're hoping that somebody's going to pick you up as a manager, which is a much more difficult field because they need less of them. What do you want to do? I mean, where do you want to go with your you know, do you want to stay doing what you're doing, or do you want to be in charge? Do you want to run your own company? You know, what kind of angle are you looking for?
I don't think. It's always better to be the boss than to work for someone.
Sure.
But it's not that I don't want to be the boss, but it's not something that is interesting to me. My goal is to, I would say, have an interesting job that can provide enough money for me.
Okay.
If I have to, becoming the boss is the next step. You cannot, I think that you cannot not continue improving, but you cannot keep climbing the ladder, corporate ladder or whatever, without at some point becoming the boss. You will, if the project is small enough, you can be both. You can have people under you and still code, but at some point you cannot code and control, 20, 30 people, whatever. If I have the choice, I would prefer having people under me or at my level that I work in a team and maybe lead, but I still want to code, and I want to be in touch whatever my subordinates are doing. So if they're coding Java at a project, I would like to know what they are coding and know the project enough.
Sure.
So I can help them and instruct them on, or point to when a problem arises, be able to help them. If I don't know the programming language they're using and I'm not immersed in whatever they're doing, business logic of the project enough, I cannot help them. If they run into a problem, I can cut their salaries by 10% and give them, find someone who can work the problem, solve the problem, but
Right.
yeah, that scares me a little bit. Yes.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I don't think that I will have to make the choice soon. So well.
Yeah, you'll cross that bridge when you get there. I got it.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
I have 4 guys underneath me, and my company is very unique in the sense that each guy is working on a massive project all by themselves, and so it's impossible to keep up with what each guy is working on, and we don't have code review or anything. It's almost like a set of each guy is an independent contractor working on a project, and so it comes down to answering their questions and spelling, discussing functionality and how things are going to function in terms of business rules and how they'll operate, and then letting them go back to it because we don't really have well thought out specs. It's mostly just like we need a program that allows someone to scan a barcode, and on the mobile unit we want them to be able to enter in the quantity and the capacity and the weight, and then we need to store that in a record and transfer that through web services back to the operation, and then bring that in and we'll create reports and blah blah blah. So most of that just comes down to how the workflow. How's that going to work for the guy running the scanner, and how's it going to be transmitted, and is the guy that writes the web services in queue with what he's doing, and so I get it, but I find myself doing most of that and not doing a lot of coding anymore. So I have coding projects that I do on the side in order to keep myself well versed, but I do find myself slipping, and I worry about it. But at the same time, I like doing what I do so much that if you were to say, you have to now learn Java because I don't know Java, great, awesome. I'll get the educational materials, and I'll sit there and I'll study it and I'll learn it, and once you know the basics of coding, everything else is mostly the same. So it's just a matter of learning the functionality and learning
learning the semantics of that language.
Exactly, and then it's just just do it and apply what you've learned over the years. So great. So let's step back to the war in Serbia because it's kind of an interest of mine. And since you're there, it's really interesting. And I kind of want to cross over into the Russian thing with the Ukraine right now. What are your feelings on that? Do you think that Russia is going to eventually continually move west and then possibly come into Serbia at all? I mean, I know that I've watched a lot of video online, and I've seen some Serbians go to the Ukraine, and assist with the operations that are there. Although I think those guys they're not obviously officially sanctioned, Serbian military.
The Serbian government passed the law, I think, a few months ago, saying that anyone going to the foreign battlegrounds, not approved by our government, will be arrested when he comes back. So it's against the law to fight for anyone. It was first for Syria, I think. Southern Serbia has a lot of Muslims, and
Sure.
They went to fight the Syria war. And I think it's then that our government passed the law saying that it's forbidden to fight for another country.
Is that enforceable? Like, I don't know how your government is in terms of, do they care? Or is it just like something that they pass to look good for the international community, and then meanwhile people are probably still doing whatever they want?
I don't think that the international community cares much about Serbian fight or whatever, but I think they passed the law, any law, now it's that thing, whichever law they pass, they don't enforce it unless they need to. For example, you pass traffic laws saying that you have to fasten your seatbelt or whatever,
Sure.
and if you don't, the government will fine you $100 or whatever.
Okay.
Nobody checks your seatbelt until governments need money. they say this month we need to collect that much money. We will put a police officer on every corner, and everyone not wearing their seatbelt will be fined, will be put to jail, whatever. I think that's how my government works. I'm not sure, but it's the same thing with this law about fighters. There are people, I see on Facebook, some of friends of my friends who went to Ukraine. They are taking pictures with sniper rifles or whatever, saying they killed this many, that many. I'm pretty sure that's not true, but whatever. They are saying they're there, whatever. And I'm interested in seeing, since Facebook is public, if you say you're fighting, government can see you're fighting, and they have a picture of you standing in the Ukraine with a rifle. So I'll see if government will do anything about that. But as for fighters, our government does not approve of us going there.
Do you think, what's your feelings on Putin and Russia moving west, though? Do you think that they are, like, he wants to sort of recreate the Iron Curtain, so to speak?
So well, we had the same problem here. We have a government that is saying, that is telling the people what people need to hear. I'm not sure what situation in Russia is today, how rich or poor they are. They are saying they're rich, that their gross national product increased 1,000% or whatever. So what we hear here is that situation in Russia, as for people are concerned, is good. So they are not that poor anymore. But when people are poor, they want to hear stuff like that. Putin will say, we will kick Obama's ass, we will push Americans from Alaska, whatever bullshit here. But that's just not going to happen. Ukraine may fall eventually into Russia's influence, but I'm pretty sure that Europe will not allow that. Some regions, the eastern regions of Ukraine, will be something like Kosovo is today. Kosovo is an independent state, as they're declared as an independent state, but they are not an independent state. They are part of Albania now.
I see. Yeah, I mean, Karate Dog lived there for a while. I don't know if you were listening to his podcast.
Yes, I listened to his podcast. And,
it sounded pretty terrible. Didn't sound like a great place to live.
It may be terrible by your standards. Southern parts of Serbia are terrible. Poverty is everywhere. If you don't have money, you don't have jobs. Situation that he described with not getting internet or cannot get an Xbox, whatever. I mean, his problems are
minor,
first world problems. People, it's not that they can't get food, but they cannot get jobs, and it's just not. It's not a place where you wanted to live. You live there if you have to. You don't have a choice.
What do you think about Kosovo in terms of being now an independent country, so to speak? I mean, do you think that it should be part of Serbia like it was before, or I mean, what's the sentiment there?
Historically watching, Kosovo it's not a part of Serbia. Kosovo was Serbia. Serbia was never this far north. So it's the cradle of our country, whatever. But that doesn't mean anymore today. Kosovo, in Kosovo we had a problem. There was a problem with the Muslim population. Albanians moved from Albania. Albanian families had 7 kids or something, while Serbian families had 1 or 2.
Sure.
So in 30 years, the population ratio was at least 1-to-1, Muslim or Albanian to Serbian.
Sure.
So at some point, if they wanted to declare independence, they could.
Sure.
This Kosovo War and many things just put that a little bit, I would say, how would I say it? Sped things up. Eventually, Kosovo would be independent. Albanians would run it. As I hear, and I think that's true, Kosovo is the cradle of crime, narcotics cartels, and whatever. It's very bad place to be. I don't think that Kosovo being in Serbia would improve that, but K4 or NATO, whatever you call them.
What was the? I mean, I understand Yugoslavia broke up and Tito, was gone out of power, and you have all of these nations separating and things of that nature. But what caused the conflict in the sense that it was Muslim versus I mean, it wasn't just Serbian, but I don't know how else to describe it. Albanians. What caused that conflict? Is it just because there was just people living on one side and people living on the other side, and they just didn't get along, and the Albanians were taking power, or what do you think? Xenophobia, or what was it that was?
I'm not sure if that's xenophobia, but there were always problems between Albanians and Serbians since World War I, I think.
Okay.
There was always problems fighting. My friend's family is from Kosovo, and his grandmother told me about. I think that was World War II. His grandfather was tortured by Albanians.
I see.
While Germans were coming.
Okay.
At the beginning of the war. But when the war ended, when partisans Tito whatever won, then it was time for retribution. So his grandfather returned the favor to the Albanians. Now the NATO came and or whatever, Soviet Union fell apart, Yugoslavia lost its power, so Albanians were the more powerful one, and they started returning the favor to us. It was inevitable. We don't just. I think people don't like each other. Is it because of the religion? Since they are Muslims, we are Orthodox. Probably, sure. I'm not sure, but we didn't like each other, and that was also the problem with Yugoslavia before. Yugoslavia had Muslims; those were the Bosnians. They had Catholic, that was Slovenians and Croatians, and Orthodox, which was I think Macedonia is Orthodox also, but never mind, Montenegro and Serbia. So when it came time for Yugoslavia to separate, it was very easy to find the dividing lines. You are the Muslims, you are Catholic, you are Orthodox, fight for your religion, whatever. And I think that was one of the reasons we were fighting.
So, how, we've always seen, we were always told, I should say, that Serbia is very close with Russia, that you guys are friends, historically friends, and, you guys like Russia, which, fine, I don't, makes sense to me. But what is the, since we involved ourselves in the war in a sense, in helping to, or at least trying to help push Serbia out, outside, back, make them retreat. That's kind of what I'm looking to say. What's the feeling towards the United States in that part of the world? Do you guys not like us? Do you guys, are you indifferent to it?
We are people who don't want to think too much.
Okay.
Are fed the. I don't want to say stupid people. I know people, they are not stupid, but they just don't want to think about that. We are fed the story. Russians or the East are good. Russians are also Orthodox. I think that's the connection. Russians are good, Americans are bad.
Okay,
whatever.
Sure.
It was always like that. Americans always hated us. Americans I'm pretty sure America doesn't care about Serbia. War in Yugoslavia was the same thing as the war in Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever. USA had its interests. They came for the interests. They took it. They left. Whatever the interests were.
Right.
I'm not sure about that. So yes, the I would say simple people hate America. They think the
Yeah.
America is evil. They think the American harp system destroy our crops,
Uh,
whatever,
okay.
everything, chemtrails, you name it. Any of those things, Americans did it. It's well, that's the thing. You cannot convince
Sure.
people
No,
otherwise.
that's fine. That's kind of how I envisioned it as well. I mean, I think that's true. Our foreign policy has been that way to create those sorts of problems anyway. Especially like recently, we're completely disorganized and there's a lot of trouble in the world. And since the Soviet Union went away, we're the only world power, and it creates a lot of distrust and animosity and all that sort of stuff. But I was just curious as the overall feel there.
I would like to also point another thing. Putin was visiting Serbia a few months ago, I think. It was maybe, I don't know, whatever. It was pretty recent. Our government made a military parade with whatever military we had left, which is not much. They made a parade. The whole Belgrade was flying Russian colors, whatever. Every newspaper was saying Putin is coming, Russia is coming.
Sure.
Also, I would like to point out that Serbia is in deep shit right now. We don't
Oh.
have anything to do. None of our factories are working. We are very close to, I would say, bankrupt or disaster, whatever.
Really?
They introduced Putin or Russia as our saviors. Putin will buy our cars. Putin will. They're making something called the Southern Stream, gas pipeline from. I don't know. It goes from Russia to Europe, whatever, and that thing should pass through Serbia.
Okay.
They were saying that I don't know what people are thinking if the pipeline might be passing through Serbia, but we are not getting anything out of it. If we get some gas from it, we are paying it as everyone else is. So whatever.
Right.
Anyways, people thought that Russia will give us that gas for free, that Putin will buy everything we have, our food, our cars, whatever. Putin came, he did his job, he was very bored. We made a military parade for him. He stood there like he was forced to. Whatever, he made some speech that was, I won't say impersonal, but I'm guessing he makes the similar speech everywhere he goes. So
yeah.
Serbia is nothing special to him or to Russia. So people are starting, I think, to see that America hating us or Russia loving us is bullshit. Nobody cares about us. We are.
You're not in the European Union, are you? You're not, right?
No. We are not. All countries around us, except Albania, I think, are, but we are not.
Do you think you guys? I mean, that's one of those things. You guys like Russia. Do you not want to be in the European Union, or is that something that you think would improve your economy?
It will not improve our economy. Croatia went into the European Union 2 years ago, or one, I'm sure, and it's the same, if not worse, than it was. European Union cannot help you. It can help you sell your products. If you are making, for example, cars, you can sell those cars in the European Union without tax, which makes your product more compatible. But if you're like Serbia and Croatia, not making anything, you have nothing to sell, tax breaks don't mean anything to you. So that's something that people here and people in Croatia just don't realize. Joining the European Union is a political token. When politicians want to take your votes, they say we will take you to the European Union. Everyone says, yeah, I will get free money. No, you won't. And that's the thing. We do want to go into the European Union because everyone is telling us that we will get a lot of money if we go to the European Union. But then again, I think people are realizing that that's just not true. We will not get money. It will be the same. Because Bulgaria also went to the European Union. They are, I think, the poorest country in the European Union. Romania went to the European Union. They also didn't do anything with it. So
So what do you think your prospects are there? Do you plan on leaving, or do you think that things will eventually improve? I mean, how do you? I mean, you're living there. What do you want to leave?
At this moment, no. My job is providing well for me.
Okay,
Even if I wanted the family, I could. I could
sure.
start it. I would have enough money. They would be also well provided, whatever. And I think in the next 5 or 10 years, for me, things will be good. Not for me, but for people working in IT. Well,
Okay.
to be exact. But
I mean, do you think that
situation.
there's going to be any sort of instability in your country? I mean, do you
Oh
worry
yes.
that because things are going to go bankrupt that
Oh yes, we
you
will
know?
have. I think in next few years we will have political problems, instabilities, because our current government, uh, is. I don't know if you followed. Slobodan Milosevic.
Yes, yes,
He was during the both Kosovo and Croatian war. He was our president.
right,
In 2000, we made him go away. We destroyed his government. People went to the streets. It was funded by US, I think, whatever. We made our new government democratic, whatever, and we thought that was the best thing ever. Then that same democratic government was actually worse than Milosevic. They stole, they sold everything, they destroyed. So now I think that people just don't care about politics anymore. So in that sense, things will get worse because today's politicians really don't have to watch what they're saying or watch what they're doing. They can do anything. Our prime minister is saying that our country is rich, that we are improving, that money is flowing everywhere, whatever, which is obviously not true. So in that sense, that's what I'm afraid of, that politicians will have no, I say, boundaries, whatever. They will start stealing everything, and at that point, I will probably try to leave.
yeah. So
Which I think,
you don't think that Serbia would have a referendum to join Russia?
nah.
No.
We could make that referendum. That would, I think, probably pass. I think about 50% people are for the European Union, 50 are for Russia, but that's something that I don't think is politically possible.
Okay.
European or US wouldn't
Okay.
allow that, I
Okay.
think.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how things go. I mean, there's a lot of question marks on what's going to happen. I personally think that Putin's working on, trying to take over the areas around the Black Sea. I mean, obviously they're not going to go into Romania or Bulgaria. At least maybe they could go into Bulgaria, but since they're part of the EU, I don't know. But maybe not. But
No. Putin's, let's say, conquering or whatever, political conquering will stop with Ukraine. He will not, I think, even that Crimea will stay like it is. I know is it part of Russia or not, whatever.
right.
As it is now, it will stay. Maybe it will be same as Kosovo declared that it's an independent country, but it is part of the Russia. Russia is controlling it with military, whatever.
Right.
But I don't think they will take Ukraine. Germans, whatever, European, whatever, will not allow that to happen.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I guess it's a weird it's a weird world right now. But I'm with you on that. So I mean, all right, we're kind of out of time. I cut these things off after an hour, but this has been a really interesting conversation. Did you have anything else you wanted to say or touch on?
Well, I did want to ask you, and I asked a part of that question. You considering your future as you are what 20 years of experience in IT,
Yeah, sure.
15, let's say 20 years. What do you think that your future is? You don't have a college degree. You are, let's say, in your last 20 years of career, so you're not definitely young or whatever. What do you think that your chances are in the IT field if your company went under tomorrow, whatever?
It's a good question. I mean, part of the problem is I live in Cleveland, and it's in Ohio, and there's not. I mean, there's a lot of IT. I mean, there's jobs. The unemployment for IT here is less than 0.5%. So you can get a job, no problem. My phone rings every day with one or more recruiters looking to see if I'm interested in getting hired at another place and wanting to talk to me, and I just ignore these calls. When I modified my resume recently, I had 20 different recruiters contact me in the first day. I'm not worried about getting another job. The question is what kind of job is it going to be? Am I going to enjoy going to work every day? Is it far from home? That sort of thing. I think, I have not been coding very much recently, and that worries me, and I need to get back into it. But it's very difficult where I'm at because I don't want to learn something new now and stay in my current position, not using that technology, and my company doesn't go out of business for another 4 or 5 years, because 4 or 5 years that technology that I learned is not going to be of any value to me, most likely. So I sit around and I wonder what it is that I should be learning, and I try to keep up to date on stuff by watching some videos online as well as reading the materials about new things and just getting a broad overview of what they are and making sure that I understand them. But I'm not really cutting my teeth on too much code, which I think is unfortunate, but at the same time I'm just not in that position right now. And as I get older, it becomes harder to stay abreast of these new technologies, and I wonder more if people are going to want to hire me when I'm 50 or 55 or something, because they want to get younger people to do the job. And IT is a weird position because a lot of older guys aren't really in it. They end up going off to do other things because it's very difficult to stay current. And most of the people that you see are more younger, middle-aged, and they get into it, and then eventually they move on to other things. And especially, in terms of being programmers. Programmers, to me, you don't see a lot of, not to say there aren't any, but you don't see nearly as many older programmers as you do younger programmers. And it's not just because older programmers are dying off.
It's just it's hard to keep current with technologies, yes. And that's probably the reason you become a boss. You don't want to learn new code. You will take 10 people that can code, and you will try guiding them. Yes, that's.
But I really enjoy it, and I think that I wish I would work on some project that had ambition, so that the project might make a lot of money or become very widespread. I'd like to work on something that's in use and large, and because I've been working at a company now that's like we have no budget and we're very small, and they fired all of us about 6 months ago, and basically said they sold the company, we're all fired, and you got basically 2 weeks left. But then what happened was that the buyers backed out of the deal, and so they asked us all to stay. And so that's when I was going around doing job interviews. And the thing is that I could have left, but I have some perks at my job. Like I only work technically a 7-hour day, but I get paid for 8. And I can come and go when I want to. And those are some pretty big perks for me personally. I know that if I go work at another company, I'm going to work at least a 9-hour day, and I'm not going to be able to come and go whenever I want to. So, so I stayed where I'm at, but I also know that the company is going to go out of business, most likely, or if the company somehow does well, they'll sell it. So either way, I'm just heading towards, before I'm 50 for sure, going back into the job market. And so I don't know at that point what I'm going to do. Like I'm probably just going to pick up another job and just work at another job. But it would be nice to work at a job that has some passion for the projects that they're doing and isn't just what I'm doing now, which is sort of just towing the line, keeping, staying afloat and trying to make do with the little that that the company has. And that's, the same as the place that I worked before. It was a small business, and I worked there for 6 years, and it was much bigger than where I'm at now. I mean, most companies are, but it was also, it had highs and lows in terms of what they could expend on resources. So I've never really worked at a big company that was, really making money and would able to, afford to send you to training or take you to conferences, assign enough people so that you can specialize on a discipline. That would be really cool for me. Because I would really like to do that. Not that I wouldn't want to be a director of software. I'm really good with people as well, and be able to, manage people, because I have a likable personality, man. But it's one of those things where those jobs are few and far between. So I'd be happy to go back to coding. I don't have a big need for financial security. I don't care so much about making tons of money or anything, because I'm already doing what I enjoy to do. I'm middle aged. I'm where I'm at. So it would mostly just be about finding a job that I enjoy, I guess. But Cleveland's weird. I should have. My friends Eric and Chet went west, and they went to Valve Software, and they're working on. Chet's like the face of the new 3D, whatever you want to call it, the headset that Valve has just come out with. He's the guy behind that, and Eric is the guy that writes all the dialogue and things for games like Portal. They're both kind of responsible for everything that you find in the Orange Box. Not that they're the only guys there. I mean, obviously Valve is a big company, tons of people are working there, but they're key players in that whole thing. And it would have been nice to have gone west with them and gotten involved more in that kind of industry that's very passionate about what they're doing. But nope, I'm in Cleveland. So the biggest people we have here is like Highland and Progressive, which is like an insurance company. There's if you got sick, this is the place you'd want to be, because we have like our number one employer is a hospital. We have like the biggest hospitals probably in the world here. It's like all medical. So, I mean, if you wanted to do software, you'd probably be involved in medical or insurance or something like that. So it's not as glamorous as games. It would be nice to work on something like that, but, it's got to pay enough, and I don't know. I have a house here and everything, so, I mean, I'm not against picking up and moving west or something if something came at that point that I was really passionate about, but I don't know. I guess you'd have to see where it goes and all that sort of stuff. I'm not a family man. I don't have kids. I don't plan on getting married, and so it's kind of like this is where I've sort of dedicated my life to. They asked Jason Newsted of Metallica once. They said, the other guys are married and stuff. Do you want to get married and stuff? And he said, no. He goes, I'm married to my bass. He's like, I chose this to do for the rest of my life. I don't know if that's true of him today, but that's what he said back then. And that's kind of how I feel about computers, I mean, it's not like I don't have, I don't date and have girlfriends and all that sort of stuff, but I'm never going to see myself sort of choosing family over computers and things. I feel like this is what I've been meant to do, and I've been very successful with it, and I want to continue to do it. But where that takes me in terms of career, it just depends on what's available. I think it's true of anybody. You can only work where they're going to hire you. So you never know.
Yeah, that's true. But do you think that your whatever knowledge, experience makes you more flexible with your job than some other positions? I don't know what's the situation like in US. Do other branches, do other careers have as much potential of finding a new job as yours is?
United States, when it comes to career, I mean, you can eventually find a job doing anything that you would want to do if you're willing to wait for that job to become available. There's the problem, I think, in the United States is we have a lot of people that have gone through college that have degrees that are specialized in something like zoology or something, and there's only so many zoologists that are going to be able to hire you. I have a friend whose girlfriend, she got a degree. I think she has like a master's degree, you know, to be like a museum curator. And you know, how many museums are going to be around that are going to hire you to be a curator? So she can't find a job like that, and but she has a job. You know, she's working at you know, a big company, but you know, it's low pay, and it's just something that she's doing until she can find something that her skill set gets her into. So I think there's lots of jobs. I just don't think that the people that are graduating have sort of tuned their degrees towards the kind of jobs that they want to get. You know, Jedi went and got a communications degree. Is he doing communications right now? Not really. You know, I think he's like some sort of office manager. Larry is about to graduate with a communications degree as well. He's like a loan adjuster for mortgages. So, you know, you can get a job. Is it the job that you want? No. You know, but so I've been very lucky in that my interests are also interests that are in high demand. But I think that it's also a very unglamorous career. It's not something I would recommend necessarily to people to get into because, you know, it's there's no there's not a lot of creativity to it, I think. I mean, yeah, you can make programs more creative, but you can't leave your job right now and go talk to somebody about what you did all day because they're going to have no idea what you're talking about. You know, you can't talk to your family about how you created a fantastic algorithm that, you know, is making this application work better unless your family's a bunch of programmers, which is most cases they're not. So you end up being very isolated in what you're able to communicate to people with, as well as you don't socially integrate with a lot of different people other than programmers or managers. So, you know, when I was a cook, you could talk to anybody about cooking. You could talk to anyone about food, and, you know, you would interact with customers, you would interact with waitresses, you know, you would also talk to other kitchen staff about all sorts of things. And as a programmer, you're very much isolated. You know, you're in a cubicle, you're on the internet, but your accomplishments go unseen. And I think that
yes, but for example, you are still a cook. The guys on the show always talk about you going into the kitchen and making a cake in 2 minutes or whatever. You still can talk about cooking while taking your fat paycheck or whatever to the bank and providing yourself with ingredients for that same cake or cooking, whatever. If you studied for a cook and you can't find a job, and also you say you can wait for any job, I don't think that's, well, it's not true in Serbia. You don't have time to wait. You have to do something. You cannot just sit. I know if US provides some social help or whatever. In Serbia, you get nothing. If you don't have a job, basically you have nothing to eat, unless your family provides for you. But that's another story.
It's pretty similar here. I mean, you don't. You know, if you're unemployed, you get a little bit of money, but not very much. Like, if I became unemployed, the money that they would send me would not be enough to pay the mortgage on my house, let alone provide me with food and gasoline and everything else that you need to get around here. So, you know, it's nice that they give you something, but it's not enough to survive, really. So, you know, you would have to find another job right away, and or tap into your own savings or ask people for help financially. You know, that's how people end up in, you know, we had a mortgage crisis here, and people end up, you know, losing their homes and having to, you know, go to an apartment, and, you know, they spend 30 or 40 years of their life getting all these things, and then they get wiped out because they can no longer afford them. And so, you know, we have those problems here. Everything's just more expensive, and so you don't have a lot of options other than hopefully finding some other job. And I think in the United States that's the biggest problem, is that people want to do a certain career, but they can't get into that career, so they've fallen upon something that doesn't pay as much, they're not reaching their dreams, so to speak, the American dream. They're just working at a job in order to make ends meet and provide for their children or whatever. It's depressing, I think, for Americans in that sense, because they were sold on the idea that if they go to college, if they study what they want, if they do these things, that when they left with this degree, that they would get hired into the position that they were studying for. And in reality, those jobs aren't available. The jobs that are available are computer jobs, which nobody really wants. And I think the reason nobody wants them is simply because it's not a
it's a nerd's job, basically.
But it's not a fun job, unless you really enjoy it in a nerdy kind of way. You have to enjoy you and I sitting here talking about computers is fun for us. It's very interesting to us. Most people, it's not that interesting, it's probably like knowing mathematics and sitting around with other people that know mathematics and being able to talk about it, but you can't talk about it with anybody else. And they don't have us on TV. There's no magazine articles written about us. It's just a very, I don't want to say lonely profession, but it's a very isolated profession. And I think that, there are other professions out there that if somebody was starting off, that they should probably look into, I think, more than being a computer programmer. But at the same time, like where you are or like where I am, if you want to make money, this is the profession to get into. I mean, if you want to get out of school, get a great job, making some bucks so you can buy a house and have a car and do all that sort of stuff, being a programmer is the job that you want to get. But just know that, it's, in a way it is, you keep mentioning a factory job, in a way it kind of is like a factory job. You're building something for somebody else to their specifications, and nobody's going to, interview you on television unless, you're into video games, unless you're writing video. That's the only sort of...
And even then, if you're a low-level programmer,
right.
Unless you're a lead programmer, they will not interview
exactly.
you, I guess.
But yeah, I think, I'll get a job someplace else, and I'll continue to do this, and hopefully I'll work with people that are my peers. I'd like to work more like with people like you than I would like the people that I currently work with. Not that they're bad guys or anything, it's just that they're all sort of not as interested in technology as the people that I would prefer to work with. I would rather be cutting edge and working on stuff with people that really enjoy this field than people that are just doing it for a job, because it's a different field. It's just you come into work and you want to work with people that are very excited about what they're doing, and not people that are just waiting to go home because they're really not into it. And we have a lot of that here. Eventually, we'll make it easier for people to come over here again and work from overseas. Right now, it's really difficult to get a job in the United States, but the technology drought that we have for people that are interested in this field makes it so that the wages are very high here. I think VMware was hiring people at $130,000 to start entry level at one point. The demand is really, really high. That's not. I don't get paid that much. But because I'm in Cleveland.
Can you put in perspective what 130,000 a year is? That's a year, right?
Yeah, right.
What does that mean? What can you do with that money? Can you buy a house? Can you buy a car?
So your average person in the United States probably makes not like the other guys on the show. Larry, Brian, and Don are not good examples. They're more lower middle class. In some cases, when Anderson's not working, he might even be considered lower class or poor. they live in apartments. I mean, Brian is a truck driver, but he only works like a 4-day week. He's sort of lazy, I guess. I don't want to say my brother's lazy because he works hard, but because of his shift, he doesn't work the normal amount of hours that I would say like an overnight trucker or somebody would work to bring home the bacon. But it works for him, so he's happy, and he does okay. He can buy whatever he wants and do whatever he wants. But they're not living in like a big house or anything. They have a condo, and historically his girlfriend has been a big breadwinner in order for him to maintain the lifestyle that he's living. I think if he was on his own, he'd struggle a lot more with the money that he makes, especially having daughters and everything. But $130,000, your average guy, middle class, would be making, say, around $50,000, and that would be a guy that can own a car, can own a house, pay for entertainment, and all the other stuff. It would be, a lot of Americans, though, they spend a lot of money on credit. They have school loans, and they have credit card debt, and they have mortgages, and they have car payments. So they're constantly in debt, and most of their money goes to make payments on all of these other things, so that they end up having no money to really spend on anything else. So yes, they have a house, and yes, they have a car, but they don't have any money to spend to do anything, So they end up working all the time rather than going on vacations or whatever, because they want to keep trying to get out of debt. But then when they do sort of make any headway, they put themselves in debt again by getting loans and things in order to make like a project or something, like build on to their house or buy another car or pay for their kids to go to college. So it's a weird thing because we have a lot of stuff, but we don't have any money to spend on anything else. And so
yes,
that's
the way economy works today. You do everything with basically borrowed money. You take your credit card, you buy whatever, and at the end of the month you get your paycheck and you cover your debts.
Right. So if you made $130,000, what would happen? Here in the United States, you would buy a bigger house. You would buy a nicer car. You would have
what's a bigger house? How big is it?
Well, so my house is what they would. I have a big house. My house, well, I mean, big in the sense of
number of rooms or whatever.
It's 2,450 square feet, but my basement is. It has rooms and carpeting and all this sort of stuff. So if you include the basement, it's 4,000 square feet. So for one person, it's rather large. It has 5 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, 2 kitchens, a rec room. I have a 2-car garage. I've got a big deck in the back that I did with the pool and all that sort of stuff. So. And this house cost at the time $195,000. So if you make
you could cover that house with a year and a half salary.
Yeah, if you didn't buy anything else. I mean, if you didn't feed yourself.
Well, of course,
but yes, you could easily if I made that much money, yes, this house would be no problem in terms of making payments on it. But I'm not having any problems making payments from what I get paid, and I don't get paid anywhere near $130,000. So somebody that had $130,000 would probably buy a house that's much larger than this, or have much larger property, and that's common. I mean, that's common. That's all over the place. Cleveland has a lower, barrier to entry. This house that I'm in here, if you were to live out west, you would pay $500,000 or more for the same house and the same property value, because they can get that out in California or whatever versus in Cleveland. So it just that depends on where you live.
Your job would be proportionally better paid if you were in California.
Absolutely, that's absolutely true. So you would
a programmer. I'm just trying to get the sense of programmers earning. That was my goal. So you're would say, experienced programmer, and your pay would allow you to buy a 2,400 square feet house in 2 years.
Yeah, I
3
mean,
years.
basically, like because I won't tell you how much I make, but
Of course
when
not.
I went to job interviews in Cleveland, the average salary that they were looking to pay was on the low end was 65,000, and on the high end was about 85,000. So that's in Cleveland, and that's a really good wage, especially if you're on the high end of 85,000. That's a really good wage for Cleveland. Because if you think about it in the terms of a couple living together, if both the man and the woman had 85,000, you're talking 170,000 a year, and at that kind of money, you're able to make all your ends meet, in my mind. But somebody else is, they're going to buy a much bigger house and have really expensive cars and pay for their kids to go to college, and so they'll be broke, or they'll have college loans to pay off, and they take 12% of your salary or whatever it is every month, and all of these other things, and so they'll be broke, but they'll have the $400,000 or $500,000 house and the really nice cars in the driveway and all that sort of stuff. It's just a trade-off. So I think if you're really good with money, because a lot of foreign people, like Indian people and things, come over here, and Chinese people come over here, and they don't get themselves in debt. They just work, and they have the IT experience, etc. They work and they're able to buy things because they don't use credit cards, and they don't take out loans on houses and things like that. They just wait until they can buy it. So they end up having a much easier time, I think, financially, because they don't fall into the American trap of buying everything on credit. So, but here, yeah, you can do really well financially, with experience. Somebody like yourself, based on what you've told me in this conversation, would do really well here in terms of you would easily find a job, and you would make really good money, and you would also have a lot of options in terms of, with your experience, being able to work one job, move to another job, or work contract jobs. There's lots and lots of contract jobs that'll hire you for 6 months or a year, pay you a set salary, and have you go to work. But again, it depends on where you want to live. If you're in Mississippi versus California, there's going to be big differences in terms of what somebody's willing to pay you for your experience. But also,
the cost of living are proportional, so
most of the time, yes, I would say that's true. Yeah, you would definitely have no problem in general being a programmer in the United States, even at a very entry level type of position, to maintain a very nice quality of life. When you have over 20 years experience like I do, you get paid a little bit more, so things become a lot easier financially. So you never really worry about money, but you do have to worry about, since it's the United States, losing your job constantly, because businesses get absorbed quickly, they get sold, or they go out of business. It's very competitive, and so I've been very lucky to have a position that's lasted, over 10 years at this current company. Generally, that's not true. I mean, yeah, you can work at Google or you can work at Apple, but the requirements to get into those places is much, much more difficult. They only hire the best of the best. And in a way, that's good, because that means that all of the other companies are more willing to make exceptions in who they hire, and they're willing to pay a lot more, because these large companies keep sucking up everybody else that's on the top tier, or who they consider to be top tier. So yeah, any programmer could do really well here, but it's the same time, because the economy isn't so good for other businesses here. We end up making a very difficult visa restriction in order to get into the country. I think right now, with the H-1B visas, we only allow 50,000 people in a year, and we have a much bigger need than that. And maybe eventually they'll increase that, but it's bad politics in order to do that, because people get very angry when they say, well, you're giving all the jobs to the foreigners, and here we are starving at home, and it just comes down to one of those things. Well, if you pick up a book and learn how to program in C#, you could have one of these jobs that pay really well, but there's too much pushback. So the people don't want to learn it, but at the same time they don't want to study. So these jobs end up going unfilled or filled with people that are less than interested in keeping up. But I think that's good in a way. It forces businesses to invest in training, rather than just firing people and hiring people with the technology they need. It would be better if businesses did a lot more training of people so that they can provide jobs, steady employment. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I want to make a comparison to see how good a programmer in US is doing, because in Serbia, with my experience, people with my experience can get about that's something like 12, maybe $13,000 a year. And with that money, you can maybe buy an apartment, pay it off in 30 years, and that's 1 or 1.5 bedroom apartment, maybe 400 feet square or something.
Sure.
So even at the same experience level, even with the lower costs of living, which may or may not be true, I'm not sure, but at the end, the programmer in Serbia, even with the same experience, is far worse than...
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
You can buy a car, that much you can afford, but buying a real estate house you can forget. But buying an apartment is something that may be real. But well, no wonder everyone wants to go to the US or the European Union. But
I think that I think that some parts of our society would be shocking, in terms of what you would pay for certain things being much higher. Of course, you get paid more, but our taxes and everything would be, I think, a bit of a shock, because of...
When you said 130, now you did or did not include taxes in that?
Oh, I did not. I mean, taxes would probably take, at that amount, you would lose about 28% to the government in taxes, and then we have state tax as well, which is going to take... It depends on which state you're in, but that could take another 5%, and then you're probably talking like anything you buy has a sales tax, which is usually around 7 or 8% as well. And then you have to pay property taxes if you buy property. Everything's taxed, so a lot of your money, I think they said something like 46% of your money goes to taxes, which is probably about right. So, yeah, it can impact you. But the less you make, the less taxes, the lower your tier. So, you make a lot of money, you pay a much bigger percentage in taxes. You make less money, you might pay like 10% or something in taxes, 11%. So, and now you have to be, if you're independent, you have to pay for health insurance. Health insurance is expensive. You'll spend, you could easily spend thousands of dollars on health insurance for your family, but your job will usually pick it up, as a benefit, that kind of thing. So, you would do much better here. You would do much better. I mean, the lowest paying programming position, that, if they hired you as entry level almost, you're going to get well over $30,000. I mean, you're going to probably get, $40,000 as an entry-level programmer. That's going to be more than enough for you to own a car, or have a big apartment, possibly buy a house. You could definitely buy a house. Is it going to be a house that you're going to want? I don't know. It's going to be a smaller house. but you're going to have a lot of expenses just because of the taxes and the way of life that we have here. But I definitely think you would do better than there. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of things cost the same there as they cost here. Like a PlayStation is going to cost the same all over the world. Physical items.
I think we don't get your discount. So
well, no.
PlayStation here is about $700. I think.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to. Yes, you're absolutely right. You're going to pay more for certain things, but I guess what I'm saying is.
But for food and those things that are required for living.
Right. Once you buy a piece of furniture, that you have the furniture forever, and it's going to be the same. It's just the ongoing fees that are probably a little bit different. I don't know. Move to the United States, man.
I don't think it's that easy. I do have that Croatian passport, so it might be easier for me than it is for my colleagues. But I don't know.
Have you ever thought about doing freelance programming for websites like Elance?
I do freelance stuff, but it's that Perl thing I was talking about. Start conversation.
But you're doing that for free for friends or whatever you're doing projects.
Some of it's paid. My friends are doing it for those freelance sites. I help them because I don't need the money. I live alone.
Sure.
My pay covers, so I help them. I get the experience, they get the money. It's fair enough for me.
Because you could go on something like Elance and end up doing like a projects for American companies or individuals, and sometimes those projects can be long term and they're going to pay you really well. So it depends. It's a bidding process, but it's also based on your skills and things of that nature. But
I think getting the money from US could be a problem. PayPal doesn't work in Serbia. I don't know if you knew that.
So Bitcoin, man. Got to get the Bitcoin going. No,
I never understood that Bitcoin thing. I know it's a currency, but I'm not sure that it's stable. Even the US dollar is not 100% stable, but you can rely on the US dollar.
Well, no, I know. I'm kidding.
Yes, I know.
But I mean, in a business environment, I don't think they're going to pay you with PayPal. I think they'd mail you a check, or.
If they mail me a check, my government will get the part of that, and I don't want my government to get the part of that. They are already taking more than enough from me.
Well, then maybe you have a rechargeable Visa card or something. I don't know. I mean, obviously.
There are ways. People in Serbia do that. I would say, friend is doing. He's not a friend. He's older, whatever. But he's doing jobs for U.S. companies, and they are paying him over his PayPal account that is opened in another country. I don't know. I'm not completely sure, but it sounds complicated and not something that I would be. Since the money is not a problem for me. I have my apartment, so I don't have to buy one. I bought the car. It's an older car, but it works well enough for me. So when I do extra work, I rarely do it for the money. I do it for the pleasure and maybe learning. So doing projects is not interesting to me, but I am thinking of leaving my country at some point if the situation becomes unbearable.
Sure.
I don't know.
Well, no, I know, but you never know. Your job could go out of business, and then it's an opportunity to work from home. And
my company is working for the government.
Government, yeah.
So as long as Serbia lives, we live.
Yeah.
When Serbia stops living, we have to leave Serbia.
Well, other people that are out there that are listening might look.
Yes.
People that with your skill level are in high demand in a lot of things. I mean, I often work with and do freelance work for friends and things like that, and they need special expertise. And consultants here in the United States are very expensive. So, for instance, I had a friend who they run a website, and they run a store that lists all of the items that they sell, and they need assistance to fix some problems, change the way it imports data, right, through a sort of a D-based system, but it has an OLEDB, and they need scripts written, etc. So to hire somebody in the United States to do something like that will run somewhere between $125 an hour to $250 an hour. So that's to get somebody to sit down and write a script in order to do this. So that's financially very difficult for a company that's a small company to pay someone that kind of money to do something, especially because then they're held hostage by that company in the event that they want to change anything or do anything in the future. So, they have to look at the dollars and cents of it. Somebody like yourself could do the same thing for, less than $50 an hour, or maybe say $25 an hour, and then all of a sudden you have 40 hours of work a week, and that's all you're doing or whatever, and you're making more money than you would make at your regular job. So I think for that, it can be very appealing to people. In order to do it, it's a matter of pricing yourself into that market, because it's very difficult in the United States to find this expertise at a price point that works for everybody. So the lower price point's much nicer. So I don't know, something to think about. If you ever get in a rut, if you ever need a lot of money, you get a wife.
What was the site again? Can you name the site where you get those offers?
Well, the site that I used was called Elance, ELANCE. They have a really nice setup there in order to work on projects. Basically, projects get created, and then you bid on a project based on what you think you can do it for, and then they decide who they want to work with. Obviously, people that have done stuff have a better reputation score, so they'll go with probably those people first. But if your dollars make better sense than the other guy's dollars, and you eventually build up a references of your own, and then you can charge more based on your references. But a lot of it comes down to expertise and knowing how to do stuff, because trying to find somebody that can manage a task like I just described is going to be a lot more difficult. And then, for instance, I've hired people at one time to work on some .NET Nuke websites, and I had one guy work on it, which is a framework that works with, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it works with like C# and SQL Server for the web. And I had one guy that I hired out from the United States, and I had to have him change I had a graphic basically of how I wanted the screen to look, and I needed somebody to turn that into like a skin for the .NET Nuke framework, and he was unable to do it properly. So after the first milestone, I let him go, and then I hired a team from India who was able to do it quicker and was able to do it correctly. And so, then I end up in a relationship with that team, that person basically, and for all future work that I needed, I went straight to them.
So you don't have problem with Indian workforce. I don't mean in a racial sense, but I never, many of my friends, colleagues, whatever, had experience with Indian workforce, and I never heard a single good thing about Indian programmers.
Well,
not that there aren't any, but those that you get for cheap are cheap for the reason.
Well, exactly, and that's why there's a review system on there, so you read the reviews of the people that are there. I think it's possible that the gentleman that I was talking to was actually Iranian. My knowledge of that is kind of limited. It's obviously illegal in my country to do business with someone in Iran. We have embargoes and things against people in Iran. So he probably pretended to be Indian and meanwhile he was Iranian. The only reason I think that is because his name sounded Iranian. You know, it's possible he was Iranian living in India. I don't know, but there are companies in the United States, also in South America and things like that, that are that do this kind of programming, and they actually are the people that hire and manage out the Indian programmers. So their project managers and things might be, say, Costa Rican or Argentinian, and then they're actually hiring out the cheaper Indian people to do the work, so they manage the project. That goes on a lot too. You know, they call that outsourcing here. But again, if you can find, you know, as a buyer that I've been, if you can find someone to do the work and they do a really good job, you create a rapport with that person, and you end up using that person all the time. And you know, the work, you know, that person becomes, you recommend that person to other people, and that person in that company ends up becoming much bigger and much larger, and you know, getting a lot more work, etc. So long as they continue to, you know, maintain that relationship. And you know, there's a big need for that. It's just you know, it's very difficult for a smaller company to get customized coding that they need in a professional way that's done correctly, and so they're not being ripped off. A lot of people will charge you and charge you and charge you, and not ever reach the finished product that you're waiting for, because they're just kind of, you know, creating problems and finding problems and things. And so you need somebody like me that can look at something and say that's bullshit, and a lot of companies don't know if something's bullshit or not. It all just comes down to reputation and you know, being friends and understanding what the company needs and giving them a good price, and creating a good product, and you know, the normal stuff that a good business should be versus what a lot of businesses are these days, which is, you know, on the internet, are a bunch of scams. And if you're not a scam and you're doing the right thing, I think it can be very profitable.
Yes, well, that's one thing that interests me. How the job providers on Elance know that your bids, when you bid for a job, that you will complete the task well?
Well, so they don't. But what they have is they have a system set up so that you know, it's very step by step.
Yes, yeah.
It's step by step. So they're not going to say to you, write me an application, write me the next Skype, right? They're going. The guy that creates the project has, you know, he has to come up with a spec and create the requirements. And then there's milestones along the way. So he creates these milestones. And before you ever accept the project, you look at all of this stuff, and you can modify it as well as a suggestion. You could say, this is the milestone, and this piece should be here, etc. So that then when the project is started, you're going to code, say, the first milestone. So you might create the login screen for the Skype 2 that you're creating. And that might be a milestone. And if you're bad at it, or you take too long, or whatever, the guy can cancel the project at any time, as well as when you reach that milestone, they might say, okay, going to go with somebody else, you know, thanks for your work, etc., but this is as far as we're going to go because it didn't work out. I mean, it's a mutual relationship, but you have the ability as the person who sold the project to sort of cancel it at any point, where at the same time you're able to bill them based on how it's discussed. Some people will charge for an entire project. They might say, like, I'll give you $10,000, you know, when this, you know, and not to exceed number when we get to this point. Another company might say, I'm just going to pay you, say, $45 an hour, and hopefully it doesn't take more than 200 hours. So, you know, it just depends on the way it's structured.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I know. Not something that I will do, but I have friends who need an extra buck or whatever, and well.
Yeah, you would be surprised if you can work out the payment system, like you were saying. You know, you can find the work. But again, probably when they're first starting off, you know, the thing is that because they don't have a reputation yet, they're probably going to have
start with something smaller, less
small and cheap.
profitable.
Maybe
cheap.
not get as much money as they would like, but do something so that they can get a reputation. And then they can start increasing how much they get paid because their reputation goes up, etc. You know, same old thing. Anyway, that's 2 hours. That's the longest Oblast we've ever done, so I'm going to wrap it up. I got to meet somebody to give them a couple of ladders that I have in my garage. So,
I'm sorry if I kept this longer than you.
It's been a really interesting conversation. It's really great to talk to you. Okay, all right. Well, good luck, you know, and keep listening to VGN and Oblast, and maybe we'll have you on in a few years and see where things are going, you know, with your career and everything, and if things have changed. Because
maybe if I move to Cleveland, I can do it live or something. Who knows?
There you go. You can come to Cinema Wasteland with the rest of the VGN crew. And,
I don't drink, so I don't think that...
Oh, well, don't come to Cleveland then. Not a place for people that don't drink. But no, I'm kidding. Totally
okay, I will improve my skills in drinking then.
All right. Well, good to talk to you. Everybody else, check out videogamenews.com. It takes you to the Facebook page. There's also an Oblast page, but I don't have a link to that off the top of my head. Just do a search on Facebook for Kevin's Oblast Radio, and you'll find it. Aleksa, thanks a lot. And
thank you.
we'll talk to everybody else later. Good night.
Good night, everybody.